The third person, Tommy McElroy, found himself awake, not out of choice, but due to the distinct phases of his wife Caitlin's snoring. It had progressed to phase 3, characterized by a deep, rhythmic snore with each breath. This pattern would soon shift to phase 4, where each exhale was marked by a moaning hiss. Tonight, as Caitlin had only consumed beer, her snoring was set to enter phase 5, typically marked by a sharp, snorting gasp that would often wake her. Occasionally, Caitlin would drink water, which would briefly return her to phase 1, starting with deep, steady breathing and ending with a soft harumph, followed by a sigh. Phase 2, a lighter snoring, would quickly ensue. However, if she opted for stronger drinks, the phases would escalate rapidly, often requiring Tommy to gently stir her to reduce the intensity of her snoring, risking her ire for disturbing her sleep. The evening had been filled with family tensions during a visit from Caitlin's mother, Patricia, her brothers Chad and Jeffrey, and her sister Hillary. These gatherings often featured awkward silences and pointed questions about their life choices, including their living situation, employment, and plans for children. Tommy felt the weight of their judgment, especially from Caitlin's brothers, while Hillary offered limited support. Caitlin, once vibrant and full of life, now seemed to be a shadow of her former self, reacting with a mere smirk to her mother's critical remarks about Tommy's job at Clark's Drive-In. Despite the challenges, Tommy was the primary breadwinner, supporting them through his job, which covered their rent, groceries, and Caitlin's ongoing law school expenses. His contributions, though significant, seemed to go unrecognized as he lay there, hoping for a moment of quiet to fall asleep. After about 3 minutes, Caitlin suddenly woke up. To Tommy's relief, she took a sip of water and settled back into her pillows. Gently nudging her to face the other way, Tommy hoped he might finally get some sleep. For years, their relationship had plateaued. Tommy worked at Delphi's diner as an assistant manager, while Caitlin intermittently attended school, often taking breaks. They lived with her family, including her father, Judge Harold Monroe, her mother Patricia, and her siblings. Tommy had been devoted to Caitlin since high school, even proposing after graduation. Despite her reluctance to commit, their relationship remained physically intimate, often thrillingly so due to the risk of being discovered. However, discussions about marriage always met with Caitlin's hesitation. Then, the 2012 summer riots dramatically impacted their lives. Delphi's diner, along with the adjacent Degard dance studio, was destroyed. Tommy and his friend Kizzy Clark, a former classmate, witnessed the devastation of their workplaces. Kizzy, deeply attached to her job and students, was heartbroken. During this moment, Stan Delchon, the owner of Delphi's diner, approached Tommy. Reflecting on his decision to sell the diner, influenced by his family's lack of interest, Stan gave Tommy a significant amount of money as a token of appreciation and left in his car. Tommy was still processing this turn of events when his phone rang. It was Caitlin, distressed and crying, seeking comfort in a moment of crisis. In the midst of her emotional outburst, Tommy learned the tragic news. Judge Harold Monroe, Caitlin's father, had been fatally shot while sitting in his car. The riot, and particularly the judge's passing, garnered significant local media attention. Tommy couldn't help but notice the omission in these reports of the judge's presence in a questionable part of town, an area known for illicit activities. A month after the tragedy, a summer wedding ceremony took place. Caitlin, escorted by her brothers Chad and Jeffrey, walked down the aisle to meet Tommy. The issue of Caitlin not taking Tommy's last name caused tension, especially with Tommy and his mother, Gladys. Caitlin insisted on keeping her maiden name, citing its professional significance, but Tommy harbored doubts about her reasoning. That evening, Tommy found himself laboring in the kitchen, preparing lasagna after a long day at work. Meanwhile, Caitlin occupied herself with makeup and trying on various dresses, seeking Tommy's opinion but invariably finding fault with his responses. After several dress changes and growing frustration, Tommy's patience wore thin, leading to a sharp exchange between them. Their argument was interrupted by a knock at the door, signaling the arrival of guests for dinner. The dinner itself was a strained affair. Caitlin's family helped themselves to Tommy's beer, while Patricia, Caitlin's mother, complained about the wine's quality, though she didn't hesitate to drink most of it. Amidst this uncomfortable atmosphere, Tommy finally found respite in sleep, despite Caitlin's snoring reaching phase 3. The following morning, a cold November day, Tommy prepared breakfast. He made oatmeal, anticipating Caitlin's preference for a substantial amount of sugar, even though she often complained about disliking oatmeal. Alongside, he served coffee and orange juice, hoping to start the day on a better note. Caitlin stumbled into the kitchen with a groggy morning. Her appearance markedly changed from the youthful beauty Tommy had fallen in love with. Time and lifestyle choices had altered her looks significantly, yet Tommy's feelings for her persisted. Despite the physical transformations, his affection remained, a testament to the depth of his love. Tommy, in contrast, maintained much of his physical fitness from his younger years, thanks to his active job. He had dark, curly hair, muscular arms, and a sturdy build. Although he noticed signs of aging and fatigue, he resolved to intensify his exercise routine to counter these changes. Caitlin's displeasure with the oatmeal breakfast was evident as she heavily sweetened her bowl. Tommy, opting for a quieter morning, took his breakfast to the living room, where he sat near Judge Monroe's old leather recliner. The chair, an overstuffed and cumbersome piece, was a poignant reminder of her father, reflecting his imposing presence in their lives. As Tommy settled into his thoughts, Caitlin interrupted, asking for money to attend a lunch for Parker's birthday. This request pulled Tommy back from his contemplation, redirecting his attention to the immediate needs of their shared life. Tommy's response to Caitlin's request for money was sharp, citing the high electric bill due to her negligence in turning off the heater. Their exchange was terse, ending with Caitlin leaving the apartment in a huff. Tommy knew she had other means to obtain money, possibly from her family or colleagues. With Caitlin gone and not needing to be at work until the afternoon, Tommy took the opportunity to rest. Once at work, the routine of the drive-in was in full swing. Despite the cold, blustery, and now rainy November weather, the canopy provided some shelter for the waitresses as they served customers in their cars. Debbie Dublachen, one of the waitresses, came in complaining about the cold and a customer's peculiar request for a hot fudge sundae in such freezing weather. Tommy, while preparing the sundae, commented on her exaggeration of the temperature. Kizzy Clark, another waitress, hurried in and out, while Nancy, the cook, worked on the grill. Tommy, overseeing the operation, noticed Jack Vogel's orange Charger pulling up. He was already familiar with the order even before Melinda, another waitress, came in to place it. His efficiency and familiarity with the customer's preferences were evident as he preemptively called out the order to Melinda. The bustling environment of the drive-in under Tommy's management painted a picture of a busy yet well-organized workplace. Tommy observed Melinda with a mix of professional appreciation and personal distance. He recognized her attractiveness and intelligence, but his connection to her was more circumstantial than personal. Melinda's relationship with Jack Vogel, a former classmate and now a police officer, further complicated things for Tommy. He remembered Jack's arrogant behavior from their school days at St. Thomas Aquinas, an attitude that seemed to have only intensified with his police uniform. Tommy mused over the dynamics of his acquaintances, noting the little details, like Melinda's preference for meatless cheeseburgers and her habit of drinking Diet Cola, which she believed helped manage her weight. He silently compared this to his wife, Caitlin's lack of awareness about his own food preferences, despite their long-term relationship. As he called out an order, Tommy watched Kizzy Clark, another colleague, who teased about the sequence of orders being prepared. Kizzy, with her athletic build and vibrant personality, stood out to Tommy. He admired her physical attributes, although he noted her lack of certain feminine curves. Nancy, the short-order cook, joined in the light-hearted banter, her height and habit of smoking a point of good-natured teasing between her and Tommy. Despite the cold blast from the door as she stepped out for a break, the warmth of camaraderie and humor within the drive-in was palpable, creating a lively and engaging workplace atmosphere. During quieter moments, Tommy efficiently managed the drive-in's operations. He cleaned the work area, checked the fry bins, and organized dishes and trays. His diligence and hard work had proven him to be an invaluable asset, much to the initial skepticism of Kizzy's father, who had hired him on her recommendation. Debbie Dublachen, the younger sister of a former classmate, occupied her downtime with texting, maintaining a lively conversation with her boyfriend. The dynamic among the staff was light-hearted, with moments of teasing and laughter, even as they navigated the busy and occasionally chaotic environment of the drive-in. After a long night of work, including braving the cold rain to dispose of garbage, Tommy was left to close up. He ensured the drive-in was secure, turned off the equipment, and managed the financials in a now chilly office due to the heater's automatic shutdown. His responsibilities extended beyond just managing the kitchen. He also handled the night's earnings with caution, aware of the risks involved. Tommy's cautious nature was further highlighted by his concealed weapon, a detail unknown to most, including his wife, Caitlin. His mother, aware of the gun, expressed her worries but understood his need for self-defense, especially given his late-night responsibilities. Returning home, Tommy observed an unusual scene at the neighboring apartment. A young woman, apparently without any concern for privacy or modesty, stepped out onto the landing in a state of undress. This unexpected sight in the cold night was a stark contrast to the mundane routines and responsibilities that filled Tommy's day, offering a moment of surprise and intrigue in his otherwise structured life. In the darkness, Tommy mused over the minor details of his neighbor's appearance, a fleeting distraction from his routine life. He watched as the neighbor quickly retreated from the cold, closing the door behind her and the two visitors. Returning to his own apartment, Tommy found Caitlin asleep on the couch, surrounded by evidence of her evening spent alone, textbooks, and an empty bottle of liquor. He anticipated that her heavy drinking would lead to intense snoring throughout the night, a familiar disruption for him. Disappointed to find his work clothes still unwashed despite Caitlin's promise, Tommy showered and changed into his casual wear. He debated whether to wake Caitlin, but ultimately decided against it, frustrated with her unfulfilled promise and her current state. The next morning, as Tommy prepared breakfast, Caitlin questioned why he hadn't woken her. He responded with a white lie, suggesting he had tried to wake her twice. The conversation shifted to the unattended laundry, a point of contention, as Tommy served her breakfast with a sense of resignation. Their interaction highlighted the strains in their relationship, marked by unmet expectations and a lack of communication, a stark contrast to the seemingly mundane yet essential routines that structured their daily lives. "All right, I'll manage," he said, struggling to stand up. "Are you sure? Is your wife at home?" she inquired as he stumbled towards the fourth dryer. "I'm not sure, probably not," he replied nonchalantly, putting some quarters into the machine. "You're feeling quite warm," she exclaimed, touching his forehead. "You should really lie down." "That sounds like a good plan," he agreed, sinking back into the chair. "Do you need me to check if Caitlin's home?" she offered. "No, it's fine, I'll manage," he murmured, trying to recall the woman's name and wishing she would quiet down. Her voice was becoming irritating. She insisted he take some aspirin and rest, then left the laundry area. "Angela cares more." "Angela? That's her name? Angela Brott, or Brandt, or something," Tommy mumbled to himself. He awoke later to find his clothes dry and only slightly warm. Both Caitlin's and Angela's cars were gone as Tommy made his way back to their apartment. He noticed the unwashed dishes, the pan on the stove, and the now warm orange juice on the table. It was past 11:30, but he wasn't hungry. He took 3 more Tylenol and left everything untouched, except for returning the orange juice to the fridge. He then collapsed into the unmade bed and fell asleep. Thankfully, he had set an alarm, which woke him at 3:30. Caitlin had said she wouldn't be going to Johnson and Lambert after class, but she wasn't home yet. He dressed in his clean work clothes, contemplated eating, but settled on 3 Tylenol and orange juice, then headed to work. At work, Tommy struggled with a congested head and had to frequently blow his nose. After taking out the trash, he hurried back inside to use the restroom. "I want to wait until my wedding night," he overheard Melinda telling someone. "Really? Back in high school, Jack was quite the..." Kizzy's voice trailed off in protest. Tommy didn't mean to overhear. They were just beside the door, and he was at the sink next to it. "I'm really committed to him," Melinda was saying, and Tommy opened the door just as the cheerful blonde girl made a gesture. Both girls let out a yelp when he entered. "Hey, isn't Teresa alone out there?" Tommy asked, sounding harsher than he intended. The girls quickly scurried outside. Harvey, the new short-order cook, gave a knowing look as a flustered Melinda came in to shout an order, avoiding Tommy's gaze. "What happened?" Harvey inquired, his expression changing. "Man, you don't look well," the one-armed Marine veteran commented. "And I've seen a lot." "Wow, you're really hot," Kizzy exclaimed, touching Tommy's forehead. "Oh, Tommy, you should go home. I'll take care of things here." Without arguing, feeling increasingly weak, Tommy secured the day's earnings in the safe, then staggered to his car and left. When he reached the apartment, he was annoyed to find Hillary's Lexus in his spot. There was also an SUV and a police cruiser in the visitors area. Parking behind the SUV, he grumbled about the potential noise from Hillary and the others, knowing they wouldn't quiet down even if he asked. Inside, the living room and kitchen were empty but showed signs of their visit. An almost empty bottle of Jim Beam, a nearly finished bottle of vodka, and numerous beer cans, far more than had been in the fridge. Puzzled by their absence in these areas, Tommy suspected where they might be. He took out his cell phone, activated the video recording feature, and cautiously pushed the bedroom door open. Tommy saw a chaotic scene on the queen-sized bed as he entered the room. Chad and Hillary were entangled in a compromising position, with Chad visibly exerting himself. It was clear they had been indulging in their activities for some time. Nearby, Jack Vogel and Caitlin were engaged in a similarly explicit act, while Jeffrey was involved in an inappropriate interaction with his sister. The scene was disheveled and messy, indicating a prolonged and careless encounter. Suddenly, Chad's movements ceased, and he clumsily rolled over, nearly falling off the bed. Hillary, caught off guard, turned and saw Tommy at the doorway. Her reaction was one of shock and horror, resulting in a loud scream. "Hi honey, I'm home," Tommy announced sarcastically. This unexpected intrusion caused a painful reaction from Jeffrey, as Caitlin responded abruptly to the surprise. Jeffrey, in a fit of anger, lashed out at his sister, while Jack, startled, turned towards Tommy, abruptly disengaging from Caitlin. This sudden movement led to an embarrassing and noisy reaction from Caitlin. Realizing her husband was at the door, Caitlin's expression turned to one of dread. Oh no, she repeated. Jeffrey, meanwhile, was in pain and anger, expressing his frustration loudly. His outburst was interrupted by Jack, who accidentally targeted him in his agitation. Hillary, in a moment of realization, shouted that Tommy was recording. Tommy, with a smirk, turned to leave the room. Caitlin, in a state of panic, yelled after him, concerned about the evidence he might have. Jeffrey, still in discomfort and distress, continued to express his frustration, both verbally and physically, towards his sister. Caitlin, desperate and panicked, shouted again about the pictures, while Hillary was overwhelmed with emotion, breaking down into tears. Tommy left the apartment, descending the stairs, and then realized he had missed an opportunity to take their car keys, which were in a pile of clothes near the door. "Oh well, too late now," he muttered to himself, getting into his car. When he called Gladys McElroy, she answered immediately, likely sitting at her kitchen table with her herbal tea. She wasn't fond of the tea, but drank it because her chiropractor, whom she greatly admired, recommended it. "Mom, can you open the garage?" Tommy requested. Of course, Gladys replied, and Tommy could hear the sound of her slippers on the kitchen linoleum. He pulled into the garage and asked his mother if he could come over to rest, explaining that he wasn't feeling well and Caitlin was occupied. His mother agreed without hesitation. When he knocked at the door connecting the garage to the kitchen, she was already there to greet him. "Hey," he greeted, pressing the button to close the garage door. Gladys immediately noticed his condition. "Oh, dear, you look like you have a high fever." She ushered him to sit down and rummaged through the medicine cabinet. Tommy, at 27 years old and physically fit, watched as his mother fetched children's aspirin for him. He accepted the orange-flavored aspirin she offered. Gladys then suggested making soup, describing a type where a ball is dropped into boiling water, transforming into soup. As she began listing every item in her pantry, Tommy agreed to some soup, knowing it was a good idea. He then inquired about his father's computer in the den, planning to spend some time there while he recovered. Gladys nodded, mentioning that the computer had been unused since his father's passing 3 years ago due to a sudden heart attack. She had even attempted to donate it to a local school, but they had no use for it. As she began preparing soup, Tommy made his way to his father's den, a place still imbued with his father's presence, evoking a mix of sadness and nostalgia in Tommy. In the den, Tommy retrieved the laptop from a desk drawer, plugged it in, and connected his phone using a fire wire. His father had been enthusiastic about technology, owning what was then state-of-the-art equipment. Thankfully, it was still sufficiently advanced for Tommy's needs. He uploaded a video from his phone, a disturbing recording showing a tumultuous scene. He quickly muted the volume to avoid Hillary's scream and backed up the video to multiple email accounts and the laptop's hard drive. After securing the footage, he shut everything down. Tommy's cell phone rang with Caitlin's number, but he sent it to voicemail and turned off his phone. "Here's your soup, sweetheart," Gladys said, bringing him a steaming bowl. As he began to eat, the house phone rang. Gladys answered, speaking to Caitlin. She pretended not to have seen Tommy, engaging in a lengthy conversation about how seldom they saw each other despite living close by. She suggested various quick meal options before finally stating she hadn't seen Tommy, and asked Caitlin to tell him to visit his mother more often. After hanging up, Gladys gave Tommy a mischievous smirk. "Thanks, Mom," Tommy chuckled, grateful for his mother's help. He hadn't realized his hunger, but quickly finished the soup. "Are you still hungry? I can make something else." Gladys began, ready to offer more options. "Mom, right now, I just really need to go to bed," Tommy said, feeling exhausted. "Okay, dear. Do you need me to wake you up for work? Should I call your boss?" Gladys asked as she cleaned the soup bowl and placed it in the dishwasher. Tommy headed to his old room, which remained unchanged since his high school days. He cleared a couple of yearbooks off his bed and quickly fell into a deep sleep. However, his rest was disturbed by unsettling memories from earlier, causing him to wake up feeling sick. "Oh, my poor baby," Gladys exclaimed as she found Tommy in distress in the bathroom. She tenderly cared for him, wiping his forehead with a sponge. After he felt a bit better, Tommy made his way back to bed, where he finally fell into a more peaceful sleep. Meanwhile, at the apartment, Caitlin was rummaging through a cabinet and found dark rum, which she didn't like. She suspected that Tommy had bought it specifically because she didn't like it. Hillary, looking worried, mentioned that Tommy wasn't answering his phone. Jack, now fully dressed, angrily threatened consequences if the incident was revealed, particularly to Melinda. Chad expressed his fear about their mother discovering what had happened, while Jeffrey was dealing with a poorly bandaged injury, continuously complaining about it. Caitlin, visibly frustrated with Jeffrey's constant whining, fixed herself a strong drink with the rum and a bit of Diet Cola. Hillary, checking her phone, noted that Tommy had left about an hour ago due to illness, according to Kizzy. Caitlin, drinking deeply from her glass, lamented over the situation, overwhelmed by the events. Hillary then questioned her about Tommy's condition, adding to the tense and complex atmosphere in the room. "No, he didn't mention anything to me," Caitlin remarked, finishing her drink. "Vogel, are you back yet?" Deputy Orville Jackson's voice came through Jack's shoulder-mounted radio. "Yes, I'm here," Jack responded. Orville sent him to address a disturbance at the Lambert condominium community. Jack raised an eyebrow upon hearing the address and then entered the apartment. "Let me guess, trouble between the couple again," Jack said to himself over the radio. The apartment was home to a couple trying to overcome their addiction issues. Unfortunately, they often had intense disagreements, sometimes even resorting to physical altercations if one of them relapsed. "Officer Vogel, please be professional," Deputy Jackson cautioned. Meanwhile, inside the apartment, the situation was tense among the four siblings. "Oh no, this is terrible," Caitlin lamented, clearly distressed. "Ouch, that hurts," Jeffrey complained. "Say that again, I dare you," Chad warned. "No answer, just voicemail," Hillary noted, putting her phone away. "If Mom hears about this, we're in big trouble," Caitlin worried. 3 days later, Tommy was feeling much better. He had been cared for by his mother and was now contemplating returning to work. He was enjoying a grilled cheese and tomato sandwich with a bowl of homemade split pea soup when there was a sudden knock at the door. Who could that be? Gladys wondered, securing her robe. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Jack greeted her as she opened the door. "What is it, Jack?" Gladys asked, unfazed by his official presence. "Have you seen Tommy?" Jack asked assertively, trying to assert his authority. "No, and I don't appreciate your tone," Gladys retorted. "Shall I call your mother about this?" "That won't be necessary, ma'am," Jack replied, attempting to look past Gladys into the house. "I'm here because Tommy's wife is concerned about him." "Well, if she's so concerned, she should come here herself instead of sending you. He's probably at work. Did you think of that?" Gladys remarked. "Now, unless there's something else." With that, she closed the door in Jack's face. "Caitlin's been looking for you," Gladys told Tommy. "Is she the one you've been having trouble with?" "Mom," Tommy exclaimed in surprise. "What? You call late at night, need a place to stay, don't want to speak with your wife?" "It's obvious," Gladys observed. "How about some pie? I made your favorite banana cream." "Yes, Mom, I'll have some after I finish my soup," Tommy said with a smile. Gladys answered the phone. "Hello. Oh, hi Caitlin. Yes, Jack Vogel was here looking for Tommy. Did you check his workplace? When did you last see him? He hasn't been home in 3 days. Why, there must be a reason." "Oh, I'm sure you know the reason. What is it?" After hanging up, Gladys served a generous slice of banana cream pie. "Big slice, right?" she asked, already cutting it for him. Back at the apartment, Caitlin fought the urge to throw her phone, remembering her mother's warning about paying for another one. She glared at her brothers. "He's at his mom's, I'm sure of it. Always runs there when things get tough," she said scornfully. "Should we go there?" Chad offered, trying to seem helpful. "And do what?" Caitlin dismissed the idea and began searching the fridge for anything to drink. "Maybe we can get her to tell us where Tommy is," Jeffrey suggested. "Whatever, she wouldn't even let you in," Hillary said dismissively. "Let's see." She dialed a number and waited. "Clark's," answered John Clark, Kizzy's father and the owner of Clark's Drive-In. "Hello, is Thomas there, please?" Hillary inquired politely. "No, he called to say he'll be back tonight," John replied, reviewing the upcoming week's schedule. "And what time will he be there?" Hillary asked. "Around 4, until closing," John informed her. "Anything else?" "No, that's all, thank you." Hillary ended the call. "He'll be at Clark's tonight," she informed the others. "Hey, Jack," Caitlin spoke into her phone. "Found him, he'll be back at work tonight." Hillary just called. "Maybe bring Chad and Jeffrey with you, we need to retrieve that phone." "How do you know he hasn't copied it?" Hillary questioned. "The computer is right there," Caitlin pointed out, "and I have the cable in my room. He can't use it without that." "Okay, but I'm running late for work," Hillary exclaimed, checking her watch. "You, drive me to work, let's go." "Here, take her," Chad said, tossing his car keys to Jeffrey. "Why me?" "You do it," Jeffrey protested, handing back the keys. "Because you're not in the condition to," Chad said, trying to tease him. "I'm fine." "No, Chad, I don't want to," Caitlin said firmly, adjusting her robe. After a brief discussion, they decided on their next steps. "Once we get that phone, we might need to lay low for a while," Chad suggested. "Yeah," Caitlin agreed, her voice tense with urgency. "We really need to get that phone." "Don't worry, we will," Chad assured her confidently. Jack felt frustrated as he saw Melinda Fontenot, his girlfriend, waving happily at him as he drove by. He couldn't help but compare her affectionately clumsy displays of affection with the more experienced approaches of Caitlin and Hillary. Melinda, in Jack's opinion, lacked the finesse and enthusiasm that the others showed. Jack tried once to persuade Melinda to be more adventurous, suggesting new things they could try, but she firmly declined, sticking to her boundaries. This was in stark contrast to Hillary and Caitlin, who were more open to Jack's suggestions. He briefly activated the siren, causing Melinda to laugh and draw the attention of a nearby customer. She proudly told the customer about Jack, who seemed uninterested in their conversation. Circling to the back of the drive-in, Jack noticed Tommy McElroy's car. "He's here," Jack reported into his phone when Jeffrey answered. "He should be finishing his shift around 10 or 10:30. He's responsible for the night deposit, according to Melinda." "We'll be there," Jeffrey responded, trying to stay focused despite personal discomfort. "He'll be off work around 10 or 10:30, Jeffrey informed Chad. "Let's just get the phone and leave him be," Hillary interjected. "No, he deserves a lesson," Jeffrey retorted, clearly agitated. Caitlin laughed lightly, breaking the tension momentarily. "Right, Caitlin. We don't need to be too harsh, do we?" Hillary prodded. "Whatever," Caitlin replied, seemingly preoccupied with her own thoughts about Tommy's possible return. She considered taking a shower in anticipation. Unbeknownst to Chad, Jeffrey, and Caitlin, Hillary appeared to be more concerned about Tommy's welfare than his own wife, a fact that went unnoticed by them. At the drive-in, Tommy caught Kizzy looking at him with a fond expression. She had been a year younger than him and Caitlin at St. Thomas Aquinas High School and had openly shown her affection for him since then. However, Tommy had been completely focused on Caitlin Monroe at the time, unaware of Kizzy's feelings. "I'm glad you're back," Kizzy finally spoke up, her cheeks flushed with emotion. Happy to be back, Tommy replied, then called out to the kitchen, "Order up." "Thanks," said Teresa Smith, picking up the tray filled with 4 cheeseburgers and 4 large chili cheese fries. "Didn't they order any drinks?" Tommy inquired, noticing the tray. "They said they had their own," Teresa replied. "Let me deliver this." "Which car is it?" Tommy asked. "The white Cadillac." "Why? What's going on?" Teresa wondered. Tommy explained his suspicion about customers sometimes leaving without paying for large orders like this, especially if they didn't order drinks. He approached the car with the order. "Hi, that'll be $28.40, please," Tommy greeted the 4 young men in the car. "Where's the waitress?" asked the driver, looking towards the drive-in. "She stayed back. The tray was heavy with all your food. Didn't want her to trip." $28.40, please, Tommy repeated, still smiling. Tommy's intuition was confirmed when he saw them scramble to gather the exact amount. They were college students who seemed to have indulged a bit too much and were now craving food. He knew from experience that such customers were likely to leave without paying, which could eventually cost the waitresses their jobs. "Thank you, come again," Tommy said as he accepted the $29. "Can we get our change?" the driver asked. Tommy raised an eyebrow. "Really? You're not going to leave even a small tip?" he asked, hinting at the lack of generosity. The driver grumbled, suggesting the waitress should have carried the tray herself if she wanted a tip. Tommy recounted. "I'll get her to bring your change," Tommy assured them. He gave Teresa 60 cents in pennies, explaining that the customers wanted their change. They were trying to dodge paying, right? Teresa deduced. "Exactly," Tommy confirmed. "That's really low of them," she commented, visibly upset, as she left to deliver the change. "Such is life," Kizzy remarked with a smile. 2 smokehouse burgers, no pickles on one, and a large regular fries," Melinda called out, skillfully stopping by the soda fountain. "Got it," Harvey responded, noticeably admiring Melinda's agility. "She's quite charming, isn't she?" Tommy noted to Harvey. "Definitely," Harvey agreed. "Order's ready," Harvey announced shortly after. "Thanks," Melinda said, taking the tray and hurrying back out into the cold. 2 fish sandwiches, no tartar sauce, cheese fries with jalapenos," Teresa requested, smoothly coming to a halt by the drink machine. "How did they react to the pennies?" Tommy inquired. "They just threw them on the ground," Teresa replied, clearly annoyed. "Such losers." "Well, it's their loss," Tommy said, shrugging it off. By 10:05 p.m., Tommy sent everyone home, including Harvey, who had offered to stay and help. "Don't worry, I can handle it," Tommy reassured him, locking up after Harvey left. A block away, Jack parked his cruiser and changed into a casual sweatshirt and a ski mask. He then exited his car and approached where Chad and Jeffrey were waiting in Chad's vehicle. "Let's go," he instructed them. "Man, why do we have to walk in this cold?" Jeffrey complained, pulling on his ski mask. "If he sees your SUV, he won't come out." "Use your head," Jack retorted irritably. "I don't enjoy the cold either, but we have to do this." Inside the building, Tommy was relieved when the heat stayed on past 10:10 p.m., a change he attributed to Kizzy's complaints to her father about the cold. He quickly finished up his end-of-day tasks, preparing the deposit slip and getting ready to leave. As Tommy stepped outside, he was suddenly grabbed by 2 masked figures, while a third one approached. He immediately recognized Jeffrey by his unique ski mask. "We just want the..." Jeffrey began, trying to sound intimidating. "Right," Tommy interrupted and, acting in self-defense, fired a warning shot, causing Jeffrey to fall. Tommy had no intention of causing serious harm but was prepared to protect himself. "Don't shoot," Chad yelled, dropping to the ground in fear. Jack, meanwhile, reached for his weapon. Tommy, knowing Jack's history and the potential danger he posed, felt compelled to take decisive action for his own safety and potentially the safety of his family. With a heavy heart, Tommy made a split-second decision that would change everything. He then quickly called the police, reporting the incident. The aftermath was complicated. Tommy's action, though in self-defense, caused a rift, especially with his mother-in-law, who was upset about the situation involving her son. Patricia Monroe seemed unable to grasp the fact that her son had been involved in a robbery when Tommy shot him. Despite this, Tommy struggled with the guilt of having taken a life. The haunting memories of the incident, the gunshot, and the look on Jack's face plagued him constantly. Tommy knew he had acted in self-defense, a fact even Sheriff Dick Davis affirmed, noting that Jack had a gun in his hand when he was shot. Yet, Tommy still wrestled with guilt, a feeling that movies about heroes never quite capture, the aftermath and the sleepless nights that follow a life-altering decision. Both Chad and Jeffrey remained silent about their intentions that night at Clark's drive-in, and Kaitlyn and Hillary also pretended to know nothing about the incident. In the midst of this, Donald Pellichet, a local attorney and father of Debbie Dublachen's boyfriend, DJ, offered his legal help to Tommy pro bono. This was especially relevant as Jack's mother, Marnie Vogel, was suing Tommy over Jack's passing. Patricia Monroe initially considered legal action against the McElroys, but her attorney, Parker Johnson, advised against it due to Jeffrey's involvement in an act at the time of his injury. The Vogels don't stand much chance with their lawsuit, given it was self-defense. But it's unfair for you to bear the burden of legal fees for this baseless case, Donald said with empathy. Tommy then inquired about the cost of a divorce, prompting a reaction of relief from Gladys. Mom, would you mind waiting outside for a bit? Maybe get a coffee, Tommy gently suggested. What do you mean by one of those coffees? Gladys queried. They have a machine that makes individual coffees. You can choose the strength, even get it weaker than your usual brew, Tommy explained with a smile, assisting Gladys from her seat. Don't start on my coffee, your father loved it, Gladys retorted playfully as she exited the room. Tommy chuckled, overhearing his mother share stories about his father with Ethel, the young receptionist. Okay, Mr. Pellicet, this is the reason those three were waiting for me outside, Tommy began, placing his cell phone on the lawyer's desk. The video features Jack, the man I had to confront, and Caitlin's two brothers. Donald's expression tightened a bit, the only sign of reaction as he viewed the disturbing footage. And the two women involved are my wife and her sister, Chad and Jeffrey's sisters. I'm seeking a divorce on the grounds of infidelity, and I also want to, Tommy explained, as the video clip ended. Louisiana is a no-fault state for divorce. You don't need evidence of infidelity, Donald cut him off. I've been tolerating their disrespect for most of my life. They've always seen me as not good enough, and I know about the no-fault policy, but I'm looking for some form of justice here, Tommy said emphatically. Understood, I'll need a list of all shared assets, Donald said, handing Tommy a form. But how much will this cost? Tommy began to ask. Let her be responsible for the expenses, considering the circumstances, Donald replied with a smile, then his expression turned serious. Just to be clear, you haven't been unfaithful yourself, right? It's crucial for our case. No, absolutely not, Tommy assured him. Good, because if I uncover anything like that while we're prosecuting your case, it could complicate matters, Donald warned. Do you have any copies of this footage? Donald then inquired, motioning towards Tommy's phone. Yes, I've brought a backup copy for you, Tommy said, producing a disc from his pocket. At that moment, Gladys re-entered the office. Can you believe the price of those coffee machines? I told Ethel it's outrageous. Here, I got you the strongest coffee they had. It might be a bit too strong, but I hope you like it, she said, handing a cup of coffee to Tommy. My comment, let me clean my table slightly before finishing the part 2 ending. It's a short series. Hope you guys are enjoying it so far. Hit that sub button and I'll be back with the ending quick.